Good morning and welcome to Sunday. I'm so glad to be here and I'm so glad that you are too. So welcome to Sunday morning and this time together, right? Episode, I was gonna say, I don't know if I think about these as episodes, but this training or this morning's message of how to live a rich life, how to get more liberated. And we're going to be talking about why it's so important for you to be doing your unique contribution. Another way to say this is why it's so important for you to be doing what you feel called to be doing, what you feel you are meant for. And I think it's so important, and I'm just going to insert it here because it feels like the right time. When you're looking out in the world, perhaps for a mentor, perhaps for a coach, someone to help you, right? I know for myself, 5, 6, 7 years ago now, I was looking for someone to help me. Sorry, I have something going on with my eye. But bigger picture, I would say really like for 20 years, for most of my life, I can remember even as a very young person, that I was looking for a mentor, right? Someone besides my parents who very much in their own ways were mentors, especially my dad. We would sit up and have these great conversations late into the evening, sometimes on school nights, I remember. And so I knew it was really important, right? Because education was very important in my home, and sleep and living well and all of the things. So staying up late on a school night definitely went outside of the normal or what felt important in my household. And yet these conversations that my dad and I would have would feel so important to me. They were so integral to my own growth as a human and into my developing an awareness of what's out there, and certainly at the time what we believed, all things related to life, living, faith, God. And so those conversations were essential. And so all of that to say, for myself personally, I always had various people around me that I would refer to as mentors or teachers or people that I respected and looked up to. But it wasn't until I hit my late 30s when I actually started to hire my own mentors, right? And hire a team. Eventually, now I have a team of people who help to guide me through life in the various different areas that I deem as the most important. And those change certainly depending on what area of my life is feeling like it needs more attention. And so I just want to offer that to you as you're looking, right, for somebody to guide you and to assist you. It's so important to seek out people who are actually looking to help you become more of who you are meant to be, right? When I started hiring mentors, the first mentor that I officially hired, she was partly wanting to help me become me, but she also partly wanted me to follow her plan or her system or her way of doing things. And so it was a struggle, right? There became a time where I started to really notice, wow, I want to go in this direction. And really, I had already decided I was going to go in this other direction. And yet she kept wanting, to pull me back over to go this way. And so all of that, it led to my own internal conflict of feeling like, wow, I want to be on the same page as her. I want to please her. I want her to like me. I want her to approve of me. And yet I know that part of why I've been struggling so much in my life in these last few years, again, in my late 30s, middle 30s, late 30s, and really as I looked back at that time over my life, part of what I was becoming aware of is I was doing what other people had set in motion for me to do. versus really being clear, like really, really clear with what I wanted, and actually learning how to cultivate those skills within me, right? Because those are leadership skills. When you're leading yourself, those are leadership skills. And the way that you lead yourself, right, determines how you feel about yourself and also what you do in the world. And so I knew I needed some mentoring in this area because the ways that I had been leading myself ultimately led me to a time period where I felt really miserable. So as you're looking for those people, be sure that you are connecting with people who are really designed and their intention is to help you become more of you versus you become more like them. And it is a very distinct difference. And yet sometimes it's very subtle, especially if you're, if you haven't taken in a lot of their content or you haven't worked with them before in some capacity to really understand what their essence is, what their vibe is. But you can easily see, right, if they're selling a very specific system versus they're talking about you becoming more of you, and that is the way in which they help people. So if you've been following me for a hot minute, you know for sure that I am all about you becoming more of you. And so that fits right into our topic this morning and why I think it's so important to be talking about directly, let alone for me to just continue to remind you as you're hiring various people to help support you in your life and in your businesses, that it is so important to be hiring people who have an awareness that it's so much more important for them to help you become more of you than it is for you to simply follow what they are doing. Now, I'm not saying, right, like I sell a process, I sell help to teach you the process for how to create things in your life, which is a universal process that, again, I just wasn't even so clear and aware of until about 5 years ago. So I am an avid learner and I am a continual student, right? And that is also what I sell and what I promote is for you too to be an avid learner and a continual student who's constantly expanding and opening up to what more there is available for you to learn and understand. Because I had sort of fallen into this mistake around, in my early 30s, probably, 25 to 30 maybe, into this thought process that like I kind of knew what I needed to know to live the rest of my life. I still would have seen myself as a learner and a student because I love learning. It's like in my top set of my strengths, right? If you've done any of the assessments that show what your top strengths are, learner is one of the top ones. And yet, I thought that I had been taught in my childhood and in the early years and college and all the things, that I had been taught enough to where I could say, like, I think I've been taught all the things I need to know and I like kind of know. Come to find out, no. And really what I can tell you now, if you're in that position where you're searching for how to figure it out, whatever stage, whatever age, and you're thinking, oh, I got to figure out how to do this. I got to like figure it out, right? You can just know that it's a continual process of figuring it out. And it's just you're just figuring out what you need to do now and how to do what you're doing now. It's not like this bigger picture, I got to figure out how to do life. And yet, at the same time, there are some very clear, concrete ways that I have now learned that I'm much more settled into that support the continual learning process and the continuing of evolving process, expanding. So all of that to come back around to say, be in that place where you're always learning and you'll never get stuck. So learn from my experience of where I had gotten stuck and could not find my way out of the stuckness that I felt I was in. Simply to know that if you're able to position yourself in that place of I'm always evolving, I'm always learning, then you will not get stuck. in that same way at least. Okay, so why is it important for you to do your unique contribution? Again, this is ultimately what I help people with in various ways, whether it's in your business, it's in your marriages, it's in your desire for a relationship, it's in your desire to be a better human, whatever area, right? It's important to know why it's important for you to be doing you. Because we haven't, as much as you think you maybe have heard this concept, I don't think you can hear it enough until you're literally doing it and it feels completely automatic and natural for you to feel confident in doing exactly what you feel called, prompted, pulled to be doing every day. So, big picture, right? Why is this such an important topic in the first place? Because you were literally taught as a child both to do what your heart's desire and not to do what your heart desires. And I think, like, you know, when you're taught both things, it's the most confusing. And so if you can relate that to anything in your childhood or anything in your early years of life, being told one thing, but then also being told something that felt opposing to that thing, right? And so when I talk to folks these days, and over the many years that I've spent working with people, over 20 years, there is so much conflict when I'm talking to people. I mean, I've been a therapist, right? For the first 20 years of my career, I was a therapist. And then the last 5 years, I've been a coach. And in both settings, I get to hear what's really going on with people, right? The struggle, the secrets, the things they haven't shared with people before, and the difficulties that they're currently struggling with and some suffering with. And so it really comes down to these places where we hold tension that actually cause us the most difficulty, right? So any place where you have tension, it's because you have these opposing beliefs inside of you that you're wrestling with, right? So thinking about anytime you're in conflict with another human, it's at any level, right? Whether it's minor or it's significant, it's because there's tension. It's because there seems to be opposing viewpoints. So inside of you, there's this notion of, I was taught that I should be doing and that I meant to do my unique contribution, right? That I'm meant to do certain things. And just to be clear, I'm not only referencing like your life's work, like your job or your purpose work, but just in general, for you to show up uniquely you and for you to take action on the things that spark your heart and for you to work towards the goals that you feel inspired towards, those are all there very, very intentionally. They're not just there haphazardly, right? Like whatever your goals are, whatever your desires are, whatever the things are that you find yourself coming back to time and time again, where you're like, oh, I still want to do this thing, or oh man, I still want this thing, or I still want to experience this thing. Those are all there with great intention. And they make you uniquely you. Because the things that your heart longs for, craves, desires, are going to be different than the things that my heart longs for, craves, desires, right? Like sometimes when I'm in conversation with people and I talk about what I've been doing in my life, they will hear something that I'm up to and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I definitely want to be doing that. But then there'll be other things that people will listen to what I'm doing and who I'm being, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, that doesn't interest me at all. And here is exactly proving, right, how what you desire, want, feel, crave, those are for you uniquely, just like the things that I desire are uniquely for me and are me, right? Part of what I think is really cool to see here is that those things that you think on repeatedly, right? Your dreams, your desires, your fantasies, your longings, combined with just in the day-to-day of who you want to be, right? Those times where you're like, I want to be X, those combined together make you who you are. They make you you, and they make you unique. So again, you've probably heard like you're special, you're unique, everybody's different 1,000 times. I know I have. And yet it's actually never held water for me until these last 5 years or so, where I'm really understanding what the heck it actually means to be uniquely me. And the more I understand it, the more I get in touch with who I am uniquely versus who I am when I'm comparing myself to other people or when I'm thinking about who I should be based on what the world says or based on what other people are doing or what other people think I should be doing, right? The more I get in touch with what it is that I desire, who it is that I believe I am, and who it is I know that God has made me to be based on what I experience internally, then I am cultivating and becoming more aware of what it means when they have said to me, you're special or you're unique, and that everyone is unique, right? So, secondly, inside of this, now, at whatever age and stage in life that you are in, it is your job, it's uniquely your job and responsibility to discover what it is that is uniquely you, who you are and what you're meant for, so that you can come into alignment with it and actually do the work to get into alignment with who you're meant to be, who you are uniquely. Why? Because this is where you are the most happy, the most fulfilled, the most satisfied, the most inspired. I was talking to someone this week, and the expression that this person was sharing with me was exactly this. I'm not living my life. I'm living life for someone else, and I am doing the things that I'm doing are really directed to make this other person happy. And until you're doing and being you uniquely, that is how everyone is being. It's really so mind-blowing when you can really see that if you're not doing and being what is uniquely you, what is fully you, what is you being big and expansive in the world, then you are doing what someone else wants you to do, desires you to do, thinks you should be doing. And in short, you can just think about it like I'm living my life for someone else, which is why you feel so unsettled. If that's you feel so unsettled, or you feel like you're wearing a mask, or you feel numb, or you feel robotic and mechanical going through life. That is what that is. And I would even venture to say if you're feeling depressed or anxious, and again, I worked 20 years as a therapist and also 10 of those years in mental health specifically. So that's where I'm coming from for background and context, that even that, right? And part of the reason I transitioned out of that world is because I started realizing there is way more going on here than simply to write it off as a chemical imbalance in the brain. There's something much deeper, because consistently in my 20 years of working with people, having these one-on-one conversations with people, many of which who were truly deeply depressed and having all kinds of challenges in their lives, what I saw the common themes that I saw is that they did not believe in who they were. They didn't believe that they could be who they were consistently across the board over 20 years, right? Which for me is a lot of personal research and a lot of discovery among the hundreds of people that I've had conversations with. Deep, intimate, honest conversations. So it's like, for my awareness and my helping people now, it's like when you fall into those deeper, profound places of sadness, of despair, of grief, of depression, of anxiety, of disappointment in life, right? All of those things, which sometimes cultivate over time and manifest as mental health. And also, let me add in here, also cultivate and manifest as severe health problems, which I too also experienced in my own personal life. At a smaller scale, I wouldn't say I had a major health problem. Oh, that's not true. I guess I did have one major health problem in my early 30s. What I now know is that when I've talked with people who have major health problems or significant mental health, underneath that, when we peel it away, many times over, I have found beliefs that say, I can't be who I want to be. And I can't do what I feel I'm meant to do. And, or I don't know why I'm here, right? That was the other thing I consistently heard over time is, what's the point? Why am I here? And so again, if you don't know that and you're not deeply rooted and connected to a sense of purpose, you are floating out there. And you're floating through life, which oftentimes ends up looking like severe problems in various areas of your life, including things like mental illness and severe health problems. So we will, because we are intended for deep purpose, every human in our design, we are meant for deep purpose. Because we are designed that way, we will find a purpose and we will sink our teeth into it, so to speak, right? We will become fused to it, attached to it, and we will live in it. Even if that means attaching, settling into, believing the purpose is to understand this major health problem that I now have and to attend to this major health problem that I now have. That becomes purpose. And I have met many people who find their purpose in exactly that. Having this now major health problem or having this now significant mental health problem. And I'm just giving you like the extreme examples that I've seen over the years where people align themselves with, my purpose is understanding this health problem, solving this health problem. My purpose is fill in the blank. But it includes that, like dealing with this depression that I have. So bigger picture, right? Pairing that and looking at it maybe in some other ways, people will find their purpose in more common, sort of, we'll say, more normalized ways, which is being a parent, right? That's now your purpose and your function on the planet. And while it is in part, it can't be in full, right? Because what happens is we start feeling like our child needs to be who we want them to be, and or we have a hard time actually letting them go and letting them do and be who they are truly meant to be. So your purpose is something very unique to you. And again, it's multifaceted. It's not even just like one thing. I do think our one thing of how we spend our days, right, our 8 hours a day, needs to have purpose in it. And we need to feel it is part of our purpose. And there are lots of things that we could say is our purpose, right? Because definitely being a good parent is a purpose, and definitely being a good spouse, a good partner, a good business owner, all of those things are part of your purpose and part of what makes you uniquely you. Whew. Okay, so why is it so important, right? One, it's for your own good, right? Because when we're not doing our purpose, we recognize now, you can see that you can cultivate deep mental health problems or deep health problems, and or just simply become very deeply dissatisfied with life. And that is a drain on everyone. Not only a drain on you and a difficulty and a suffering for you individually, but that goes out and ripples to lots of other people around you who feel the repercussions of that, who are impacted by it. But also, when you're not being in your unique purpose and doing your unique things and being uniquely you, the world ultimately gets deprived of that. So, if you don't believe that you play a unique purpose and a unique role here on the earth, then you won't be like motivated and inspired to be uniquely you. But when you actually shift your perspective and you look out there in the world and you're like, whoa, we are definitely all connected. I mean, I am still pleasantly surprised at how I can be out in the world, randomly wherever out in the world, and come into contact with some other human and have the best connected conversation. It's so much fun. I love it, and it's awesome. And it's because we are so connected. So if you don't believe that, please reach out to me and I will be happy to have some conversation with you to help you see how that is true. There used to be a Netflix series even called, I think, Connected. And there's lots of content out there in the world to help you really delve into that topic specifically. But it's my belief that we are deeply connected. And so I'm just going to work from there. As you know that you're deeply connected and there is like this greater thing going on in the world where we're clearly deeply connected, well, then it just starts to make way more sense why, for instance, I'll just use myself for example. Please put yourself into the situation so it relates exactly to you. But if I didn't break out of where I was 5 years ago and shift and show up here in this space like I now show up, there are so many things that wouldn't have happened for me personally and for you, right? Especially those of you who've been watching me consistently over time and those of you that are personally connected to me, that wouldn't have happened, right? And it's not to say that it's like some massive thing. No, it doesn't need to be. It's your life specifically that wouldn't have been impacted in the way that you and I have connected, whatever way that is, whatever way that you've been inspired or motivated or helped by who I am being now in the world. Because who I was 5 years ago for this period of about 3 or 4 years was miserable. Right? And so that version of me, excuse me, I did my neti pot right before jumping on here, so my sinuses are running a little bit. But for instance, right, we can just think about like, I wouldn't be married right now. If I was 5 years ago stuck where I was in my misery and my suffering, somewhere around, let's say it was probably started about 8 years ago, for this 3-year period, if I had stayed there and I had not found my way out, right? And I had not taken the steps to be more uniquely me and do what I was feeling called and prompted and spoken inside of me to do, for sure I wouldn't be married. And I wouldn't be working with the clients that I'm working with, and I wouldn't have some of the personal relationships that I have now, and the personal relationships that I had from years ago wouldn't be, where I show up now. Let's just say my book club for one simple example, right? When I show up now in my book club, when I showed up in my book club, let's do it this way. When I showed up in my book club 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it started, 7, 8 years ago, there was this like, well, Sarah, like, are you finding a new job? How are you feeling? Are things getting any better for you? More or less. When I show up at my book club now, people are like, Sarah, where are you traveling to next? What is going on in your life? I love watching you on social media. All of these things, right? And several of the people in there now say to me, you just inspire me so much. Oh, I'm getting tearful just thinking about it. There's one woman who's in her 70s, and when she and I have conversations, we get together, every, 3 or 4 months, and we have these conversations, and she's like, Sarah, you just inspire me so much to go do and be And I am, like, it's still hard and I'm still like, this, that, and the other thing, but I'm getting out there in a whole new way. Thank you for being you. And that happens all the time now. That's not just like one thing, right? And I'm sharing that for you to be inspired, because this is the design of life, right? This isn't about me, but I want you to see the example, because several years ago, that was not the case. And it's not to say that people are getting amazing results in the therapy I was doing back then. And I had clients constantly coming back around and saying, like, you've helped me so much. Thank you so much. All the things. And my employees, same. And it's totally different now, right? Because back then I was like struggling, and there was a lot of like energy that communicated to them. I was struggling, even though I didn't necessarily talk about it with them. And they definitely weren't saying, you inspire me. Watching your life, I'm inspired to live a better life. They were saying things like, you've helped me so much, because I was really good at my skills of being a therapist, right? And I was really good at the skills of being a leader and leading other humans. But I wasn't living an inspired life where now I can literally show up and have one conversation with another human and they'll be like, what is going on here exactly? Because you're just like so expansive and you just glow, and there's like an energy that tells me I want to hang out with you again. Right? And so that's the difference from living the way you think you should be living, like I was doing, and living an inspired life where people now come into your vibe and they do that kind of thing. That is the life that you are meant for. That's my ultimate point here. Not about me. It's about you and you living that way. And if you just take a moment, right, and just imagine if you were living that way and all the people that you know in your life were living that way. Yes, I know that does take some imagination, but like just give yourself 10 seconds to even conceptualize what that would look like. Amazing! Like amazing. So here's the thing, right? If you stay stuck in wherever it is that you're stuck, and or if you choose to just play it small and not expand into the fullness of who you are meant to be and showing up in these incredible, unique ways that are unique inside of you and your heart and your mind, then of course the people in your world are going to be inspired by you to also do the same thing. So again, like all I have to do is look at my own life to see how this is a fact. But I don't actually have to settle for that, because I've now worked with so many people and I've seen this exact thing happen. All the clients I work with now get that kind of transformation if they stick with the work and they do the work, obviously. Versus the clients I was working with before, their life got better, but it was like they were no longer like feeling awful, right? They were like feeling better, but they weren't feeling amazing, where they then would live inspired and go out and inspire the other people that they're living with and in life with. So it's a radically different shift. So when you're in this place of truly being grounded and rooted, deeply rooted in who you are, where humans can come along and like be in their fear and in their shame and say things, right? Like I have what I call stone throwers here in my social media platforms who will come along and be like, you sound, blah, 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 blah. Or, oh my gosh, grow up, you have pink hair. Or, all these just things that people say, right? The different trollers that come into your social media when you're out there and putting out your message. Now, if that were me 5 years ago, and definitely 10 years ago, I would be like in quite a stew. I would be in the shame stew, as I call it. And I would not be here with you like this, that's for dang sure. But because I've done the internal work to get so rooted and grounded in who I am and how I now see the world working, a completely different way than what I saw 5 years ago. Because that has happened, when the stone thrower comes along, I'm like, aw, hey, thanks for sharing and goodbye. And I don't sit in the shame stew anymore. It's like, I truly from my heart can say, for they know not what they do. Because again, if that person truly were deeply rooted and grounded in who they are, and that life is intended to be this beautiful experience, a struggle sometimes, certainly, and pain and all of the things, but a beautiful overall experience that evolves us into something more inspiring, they wouldn't say those things to me. Of course they wouldn't. Like, of course they wouldn't. Even the most cruel, awful person that you can think of right now, they wouldn't be doing that. They just wouldn't. Okay, so that's why this work is so important. Because of course you get to be happy, right? No, life isn't without pain. I don't even say life isn't perfect because I actually think that this is perfect. Like, I am intended to have periods where I'm like, is it gonna work? Am I gonna be able to do it? Is it all gonna work out okay? Does that person like me? Where I then circle back around into like, everything is good and I'm fine and everything is gonna be okay. But if I didn't have that rub, right? Iron sharpen iron, which means I sharpen within myself. And the way that we sharpen is we come into this contact and we have those experiences where we're like, is everything okay? Am I okay? What do I do next? Is it gonna work out? Am I going to evolve and be this like next beautiful thing that I really want to be? It's okay. We have fear, we have shame, we have doubt, we have all these things happen because we're intended to grow and evolve. That's the process, and it's beautiful, and it's perfect. So, if you're anything like where I was 5+ years ago, I was thinking that there was going to be this place where like life was just good, right? If I figured out how to be like who I needed to be, then life was just going to be good and I wasn't going to suffer anymore. So it took this real deep grounding within myself as a human and a complete perspective change on what the future was really entailing and holding to shift, and I'll just sum it up by saying I used to believe like the world was going to hell, more or less in short form, and that like life was just progressively getting worse. Of course I wasn't getting happier or enjoying my life more or thinking there were like more amazing things for me to be doing. No, I was saving my money. I was stockpiling and holding on to and playing small. Because if you think the world is going to end and you think people are going to hell, or you think the future is bleak, or you think it's a crazy world out there, why would you like really want to evolve and be your unique you and like take a risk on living in a totally different way that actually inspires you to live more? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. If you're living over here in this kind of mindset, in this kind of reality, that the world is like not a safe place to be. So it takes some transition to get into the space that I'm now in. Doesn't take as long as you think it would, though. Let me be clear. And it took me a lot longer to get to here because I resisted it for several years. As the professional, right? My ego got in the way and was like, oh, no, I can't possibly ask other people to help me. I can't possibly admit that I really don't know what the fuck I'm doing. That would be so embarrassing. And that was literally what I used to say. And I can remember saying it to the therapist that I was with when things really got bad, where I was like, that would be so embarrassing. You mean you want me to get up and tell other people, like other therapists that like look up to me, that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing? Ah! That did end up happening. And I'm so glad it did, because now I can share that with you and laugh about it. Like, how silly is that to think that I knew everything? But let me tell you, and if you're one of those people listening to me right this morning and who are on the replay, I love you because I have met so many people. Again, if that is you, like I love you. I have met so many of that person who I was not that long ago, who thinks they like know all that there is to know, and their conclusion is life is just really hard and I'm going to be suffering indefinitely. Or like I just always am going to have anxiety, or I'm just always going to feel fearful, or I'm just always going to feel insecure with who I am, or I'm just always going to need to be like being healed. No, it's just simply not true. But again, you don't know that, and you won't shift your perspective, and you won't even be willing to see something different until you buy into this message this morning. Which is why this message is so damn important, and why I'm going to keep talking about it until I feel like I'm meant to progress into something even more. But it really is this part, right? Is that you get to live how you want to. And I'm not talking about like, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm talking about you being deeply grounded and rooted in your unique contribution, your uniqueness as who you are meant to be, doing the things that your heart longs to be doing. And I'm not talking about fanciful shit here. I'm talking about the real stuff of life. Where you want to be living, the work you want to be doing, the way you want to be moving in and out of every single day. Like right down to what time you want to wake up in the morning. All of the things where your heart, where you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to get up until 7 a.m. I'm talking about that. This isn't some sort of like fanciful thing. Some people, I think sometimes when people are listening to my message and they're hearing me, they think like, oh, my life is so exciting and, all of this travel and whatever. But like, I'm like talking about the real ins and outs of living. Yes, travel can be a part of that. I have to say, in the literal hundreds of people that I've talked with in the last 5 years, probably at least 50% of them have said, I wish I could travel more. I wish I could go here and go there and go do this and go do that. That's a real thing. If 50% of the hundreds of people that I have talked to in 5 years desire, hunger, long to be out traveling for whatever purpose they desire to do it, that's a real thing. It's not to be ignored. It's not to be shoved under the rug as if like, oh, that's just some fanciful dream. No, that's a real thing, because here I can tell you, when I go out and I travel in whatever capacity that is, where my heart is like, ooh, I really want to go X, Y, or Z, and I go X, Y, or Z, I become more of who I am meant to be. It isn't about, oh, I went to California for the month of February by myself, right? And I had this amazing adventure journey. It isn't about going to California. Let me be clear. It isn't even about the traveling, right? Like the adventure of the travel, although that's of course all part of it. What it's about is you go and do and be who you're meant to be, and you become more of who you are meant to do and be. You become more empowered, you become more liberated, you become more powerful, you become more capable of leading yourself. You learn how to be more integrated, more rooted, such that the next time you feel inspired or moved, literally just tomorrow, you'll be more likely to do it, right? Or you come up on a cause or a situation or something on the news that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And instead of feeling like, oh, I can't do anything about it, you're like, I'm going to do something about this. Let me see what's up, right? You just look at whatever's going on in the world right now, whatever's on the news that triggers you, that gets you all flustered. When you're deeply rooted and grounded in who you are and the fact that you are incredibly powerful, you see the news, you watch the thing, and you feel inspired to take action on it. And it's not really like action simply like you're expressing your frustrations and your upsets on social media. No, I'm talking about like inspired divine action that's like going to change how others view whatever the thing is that got you so upset when you're watching the news. where you're like imparting wisdom, where you're imparting truth to others to inspire them to live in a new way. Game changer. Okay, let's bring it home here. So, when you choose not to become deeply rooted in who you are uniquely and living that way, and you are not inspiring yourself or others to live, we pass on how you're living and how you're being to the next generation and the next generation. That is your true legacy. I've also talked to, in all of these hundreds of people I've talked to in the last 5 years, one of the themes that's less prevalent but is definitely there is I want to leave a legacy. I want to have an impact on the next generation. I want to have an impact on my kids, which is beautiful. And most humans seem to be very focused on that it's money that they're leaving behind. That's their legacy. But it isn't the real legacy that they leave behind. Money is just something that you leave behind and you literally leave it and give it to other people, which is amazing. And it isn't the true legacy that you're actually passing down. The true legacy that you're passing down is who you've been being and how you've been living. Why? Because clearly the people who you have been watching, right? You've been watching the generation ahead, older than us, right? I've been watching, you've been watching the generation before us, and you've been learning and taking in from them. And we're either consciously or unconsciously choosing to do it similar, or we're choosing to radically do it differently. One or the other, right? We're either doing it similarly, very much the same, or we're choosing to like rebel and do it totally differently. And that's how this goes. And it's been going this way for generations. So when you think about wanting to live a legacy, leave behind a legacy, and you're thinking about your past generations and the past generations of what they have passed down to you, it is those things that you are still really struggling with over and over again that is the true legacy that they have passed down to you. In part, right? Because they've also passed down a lot of amazing things. And if we're going to take credit for one, we've got to acknowledge the other. So if you're wanting to leave a lasting impact, which I know you do, which is why you're like out in the world the way that you are, it's because you want to have a lasting impact on the world and on the people you love. The fastest, most incredible, meaningful legacy you can leave is who you are being and what you are doing. When people look up to you, and this was one of the moments for me in my personal life where I was like really struck and had that like, whoa, eye-opening moment. My niece, we're in the kitchen many years ago now, and we're in the kitchen, and she heard me complaining about something. And it was something that she'd heard me complain about multiple times, not just once. And she said to me, Auntie, when are you going to do something about that? Woo! That one like really knocked me over. It stopped me dead in my tracks. And I was like, whoa. She is hearing me repeat this thing over and over and over. And she's right. I'm not doing anything about it to actually stop it. Not that I wasn't doing anything. I was working my ass off to get this thing fixed and put into such a way that I could live with it in a way that felt really good. I couldn't figure it out, right? I couldn't move it around in such a way that I could feel really good about it. And I decided in that moment, I have to do something differently, radically different about this, because she is watching me and how I am living. And she is learning from watching me. So that's how this happens, right? When you hear generations, pass things down to each other, that's what that is. And it is the most efficient, effective way to live a lasting legacy for those coming after you. Okay, so again, this applies to everything, wherever you are in your relationships, your jobs, your locations, your homes, your bodies, your health, all of the things. So what can you do to really start shifting, right? There's a lot of things you can do, and you've probably already been having a lot of thoughts around what you can do differently, how you can be different. And I would say big picture, again, the work I do with people is shifting what's possible, helping them to see what is possible for themselves. And this all happens inside of our thoughts, inside of our beliefs, right? At the core of what and who we are, it's our thoughts and it's our beliefs. It's not who you are in the sense of like your essence, but it is who you are being in the world. So shifting your thoughts, shifting your beliefs into what is possible versus focusing on what's not possible and or what you don't think you can figure out. So certainly globally, thinking about the big picture of the future of the world, when you're thinking about it in a depressing manner, you're going to be less inspired to live differently, to be differently. So changing your beliefs around the future, changing your beliefs about what's possible for you and what's possible for others. Your beliefs, always looking at what you spend your time thinking about the most, right? What do you perseverate on? What goes on over and over and over? What's on the loops in your mind? And shifting those to something more useful and productive to be thinking on, which is why I'm always saying, go do that thing you most want. Focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. And even more importantly than what you think you need, focus on what you want. Focus on what you desire and be working towards that. Game changer. If you just did that, it would completely change the game for you. The other couple of things I want to add in here is listen for the voice, right? Listen for the voice of God, of the divine, of life speaking to you. However you think about it spiritually, I call it God. Think about and hear, right? Listen for the voice of God. The voice of God, the voice of creation, the voice of life. It is always speaking to you. Listen for it. It's there. It's in the impulse of your desires. It's in the longings of your heart. It's in the nudges that say, go do this, go do that. It is in those things that you think on over and over and over again that you want, that you desire. The guidance. That is the guidance, and it's always there. You do need to create the ability to hear it, to know it, and to trust it, which again is part of the work that I help people do. When you work one-on-one with me, you definitely are tapped into the voice, and you definitely understand that it is your guidance, and you trust that you can take action on it, which is my next item for you of what you can do is to take action on the things that are shown to you. Take action towards the things that you want. Set up a plan that will help you actually accomplish the things that you want. If you want a new job, right? You want to transition in your job, set up what it is that you want. And just that takes some work, takes some effort to really get clear on what is it you really want to be doing. And if you say, I don't know, again, it's a matter of forcing yourself to come up with the answer, pressing yourself to come up with the answer because you do know it is in you. You do have unique purpose in you. So taking action towards what it is that you want. If it's being willing to get help with figuring out what is it that you want. Awesome. Again, that's what I help people with. I help you get so clear on the things that you desire in your life so that you can literally create your whole life to be full of those things that you most desire and that you see the world in such a way that you can have them. Again, all of that is why people hire me because I too, many years ago, could not figure this out. Could not see the world in such a way that it would allow me to be able to do these things. So don't get discouraged if you're like, oh, I've been trying to do that and I can't do it. I don't know how, I can't figure it out. I totally get it. It's okay. You're okay. You're right where you need to be. Be willing to take action. Be willing to hire a coach. Be willing to hire somebody who you trust, who you believe can actually help you do these things. Remind yourself daily, remind yourself daily of what it is you want. Remind yourself daily of what it is you desire. Even if that's like, I want to wake up and feel good about life. That's an amazing thing to be reminding yourself of every day. If it's, I want to have a great relationship with my spouse. That's the thing. Remind yourself of that every single day. Instead of getting caught up and stuck on thinking about how you can't stand that person or how they bother you so much. Because those things, and you thinking about them, are not going to help you get what you want. And lastly, which I'm going to talk more in a future talk, is the strategy of faith. And I'm just going to end on this note stating and reminding you, faith is having belief in what you cannot see and in what you do not already know or believe. So when you're thinking about what you want, oftentimes what throws people off track is thinking, I want X, but that's never going to happen. Right? When I get people to really look at and declare what they truly want, it's under so many layers, they're hiding it, so to speak, because they don't believe they can have it. And so when we find it, they'll say, oh, but that's never going to happen. Or they'll say a bunch of other things that leads me to say, do you think that thing is really going to happen? And they'll say no. So what we employ here, when you don't think it's going to happen, when you really don't believe it, right? Which again, if you're not willing to actually declare or you find yourself saying, I don't know what I want, it's because you don't believe you can have it. That when we do identify it, right, then you choose to believe from a posture of faith that you can and will and are meant to have it. So again, faith is believing the things that you cannot see, that you do not understand, that you do not believe will happen. And so you employ the strategy of faith, which is to say, my own abilities, my own knowings to date are not going to create this thing. Nothing that is already known to me is going to create this, is going to empower this to happen in my life. The thing that will is your faith in God, your faith in whatever you call it. The thing that is outside of you that is bigger, it's in you, it's outside of you, and it is simply just bigger than who you are in the way that you know yourself right now. And so when you tap into having faith in that which is bigger than you, the thing that you believe that created all of this, you're tapping into a strategy for how to create this, how to have this thing that you really, really want. It is belief in what you cannot see, and in spite of the appearances, right? Oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that, or I don't have the ability to create that. That's when you tap into the strategy of faith in God. Faith in the belief that something much bigger than you, the power that is much greater than simply your abilities as they are right now, allows you to create this thing. Okay, again, I'm going to talk about that more. So I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, you guys. And for those of you ready, you're like, yes, I want this thing. Even if it's like, oh, I'm in the struggle and I want this thing, I'm here for you. This is the work I do with people. We work one-on-one for a period of 6 months together where we get you radically clear with your true heart's desires, including those things that you're denying right now or that you feel aren't even there. And we get you also then really clear on what's keeping you from actually just doing them, having them, creating them. And we help you reconstruct the way that you see what's possible for you. You want to start a business, you want to get married, you want to retire and have some amazing retirement, you want to have an amazing relationship with your kids where you leave an amazing, beautiful, lasting legacy for them, I can help you do all of those things. You want to get through a major health issue that you're having, I can help you do that. All the things is this process that I've explained to you here. And allowing for someone to come into your life to actually mentor you and guide you towards you creating the things that you know you are meant for. I will drop a link here in the comments for you to be able to set up a one-on-one initial conversation where you and I get to know each other, get to decide if it feels like a good fit, and you will also leave that very first call with immense clarity around what it is that you want and the very thing standing in your way right now. All right, you guys, as always, thanks for joining me. And in the meantime, from now and when I see you next, go do that thing you most want to do today. Join me here Sunday mornings, 9:30 a.m. on Sundays live. And I will see you soon.